fever that has plagued the earth since before Christ. Is the arrival of our recent president a sign of Armageddon? Psychic medium Scott Cruz, myself, and special guest David Palmer talk about how this may be the last years on Earth. So maybe it's turkey and beef this year for Thanksgiving?
Oh, no. I'm going for beef. Where's the beef?
Where's the video?
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
And you can thank me for covering your astro.
Leading out loud. Leading out loud. Leading out loud.
Welcome to LOL Leading Out Loud. I am astrologer Christopher Witecki and joined by my good friend, psychic medium Scott Cruz. Hey, Scott, how you doing, brother?
How's it going? How was that Saturn? Last day of Saturn, huh? Retrograde?
We'll talk about that, actually. That's another Armageddon topic. Saturn direct. Well, actually, a full moon in Taurus, actually, Friday, brings an annual end of times message from the universe, which is also known as the Pagan New Year, which is also known as Halloween. We'll talk about what it means for you. Scott and I also chat about the energies in our Psychic Surf Report. And for today's feature story, our topic is Armageddon. According to the book of Revelation, humans are to experience an end times where a gathering of armies will come together for a great battle. Is this the end of times? Astrologer and social influencer David Palmer, aka the Leo King, is here with us to discuss the astrological history of Armageddon and propose what he sees in his prophecy of our lifetime. But first, Scott, let's do our Psychic Surf Report as we always do. I have to say, it has been a shift show for me this week as far as energy is concerned. It's no secret that after the election in the United States, President Trump has been re-entered as his role as president-elect. The energy in the country has gone south, I think, and we've been seeing it all over. But I actually marked this not so much as political, and I said this last year, but Scorpio energy. You know, Scorpio energy is tumultuous. It's black and white. I find that, you know, people tend to give each other ultimatums, like it's my way or the highway. And the only time you have the, reproductive organs to do that, I think is in Scorpio. You know what I mean? Like otherwise you kind of go back to your meek, timid kind of role.
Sure.
The energies of this prior week are sort of building up, and I'll just give you the foreshadow astrologically of what's happening. You brought it up already. First of all, we have a full moon in Taurus. That happens on Friday morning. Now, that full moon is typically the Halloween full moon. It's also known as the Pagan New Year. The pagans celebrated New Year with that full moon in Taurus, which became, the moon of Halloween. But it doesn't always stick around Halloween. It moves around, as planets tend to do, and moons. And what it means spiritually, energetically, is a rebirth of Pagan New Year, because Scorpio is death and Earth, Taurus is creation. And so that is the line. So we are up against a little astrological Armageddon on Friday morning, but I think probably sealing the deal that it's Armageddon, Saturn stations direct early that morning, which means karma is now moving forward again, and shift will hit the fan according to karmic and whatnot. So you could say it's going to be, it's been high seas for me and my subscribers and my team at Serious Joy. We've all been sort of a little bitchy with each other. You know what I mean? Like everyone's been a little bit of a biatch.
A little?
Yeah. Has our team been hard too? I know Adam always is. Yeah. The director. What do you experience? I mean, what have you been seeing in your own following? You do a show on Thursday nights. What are you picking up on?
I always say, the magic of astrology is like harnessing the energy either for empowered or disempowered. So when I look at certain phases or cycles, I say, okay, how can I harness the energy to empower myself, not to be disempowered? I think when we're unconscious to what's going on astrologically, we could either sabotage ourselves or, limit to what we're trying to accomplish. So in this case, I really feel like, especially with individually and collectively, we're going to kind of see people reveal themselves for who they truly are. So there's gonna be like that mask kind of making its thud, I would say, and a lot of this will be unconsciously or unintentionally. So pay attention to your relationships this week and how people are communicating with you, because I also think it's a good time to reveal who you truly are. A lot of people have been holding back. I think right now is a perfect opportunity to start expressing the things you've been kind of being constipated on, and letting that flow out, and so you can reveal your true nature. And so there will be a lot of that conflict. People bumping heads a lot. Adam, our producer, had some bumping of heads last night at his game too.
Literally.
And so literally, he's all bruised up from that. So, I mean, we need to pay attention to this, but in the same token, I always say this could be a disempowering stage for you where, again, you can feel defeated by other people's points of view and demands, or you can stand up and reveal your true nature and not take that shit. So,
what's interesting is there's a that's not even a planet. It's a calculation called Black Moon Lilith. I don't know if you're familiar.
Okay.
But it's sort of like the Antichrist of astrology. It's this energy
Gotcha.
where we track it where it is. It has to do with, it's either a dust cloud or it's like the space of the moon's orbit, whatever it is
Dust
actually
cloud.
scientifically. No, that is Waldemath, a version of it.
Yeah.
This been apparently viewed a few times through telescopes, but it symbolically indicates where where Lilith, the first wife of Adam,
Right.
comes back for revenge or whatever. Point being, she is at step 14 and 15 Libra this week, which means basically the Lilith or the dark side of people are coming out in their relationships.
Sure.
Which I have seen in a couple. I mean, I'm seeing lots of cases where people show me sides of myself like, Jesus, I didn't know you had that in you.
It's like,
I don't know, so I think you're right that there is that that's coming forward, and the planets also suggest that this full moon in Taurus is at 24 degrees, which actually has to do with your relationship to the future. So technically, this year's full moon in Taurus, to me, my interpretation is that you're going to let go of an old marriage you have to reality or to creation or to the future. I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of Twitter's ex posts saying they're leaving the country due to the president. So they're changing their future. They're no longer Americans, apparently. Which I think is harsh. Again, that black and white harsh, like, you can just turn off the television.
You're not my child anymore. All this like disconnection, ending of relationships. Yeah, it's kind of extreme.
I've never had more threats to me, like people giving me ultimatums, like you do this or I'm going to do that. It's like, fine, take hostage of the relationship. Have you seen a little bit of that edgy hostility yourself?
In my personal life, I've been seeing others, having those experiences with others in a sense. Me, not so much. I've been seeing it more working in my favor. I've been seeing a lot of synchronicity this past week. Things really fitting together. So, but for me, like I said before, I'm starting to realize, this is who I really am, right? Because I've always been focusing on other people. So it's actually shown to me who I really am. So those in the empowered end of the spectrum will start feeling that sense of self and sense of synchronicity. So yeah, but I've noticed with my clients, there's been a lot of that opposition, a lot of demands. And I think, look, we can be saying it's a negative experience in the process, but I think at the end of the day, we do need to refine and we do need to kind of separate in order to come back together. So I don't think the separation period is necessarily a bad one. I think it's needed in order for us to regroup, reconfigure, figure out what we need and come back together at a point where we're stronger. So I always say this is a positive thing that needs to be done, needs to happen. That's why it's happening.
And the astrology has got some interesting points as well. Saturn direct actually in Pisces is huge. The last time was the early 90s. David can probably talk to that. And it's only, every 30 years we're forced to face our karma.
Right.
And that's Saturn in Pisces basically. Saturn stationing direct says, hey, okay, you've been given the chance to clear out your karma. The bus is leaving without you. And I think there's two aspects that happen. But my point is that what's going on here is not so much the shit you are upset about in the present. Right. I think there's a lot of projection. I see people overreacting to small things. And when that happens, it's because this has been bugging you for centuries and it's happening again, right? I even think with the elect President Trump, I've made the prediction. I think it's bringing up all the times where people died under Mussolini, died under Hitler, died under, Attila the Hun, so I feel, there's other projections going on, which
absolutely.
Which means that I think once we get over this particular, what'd you say, constipation flowing out?
That's what I'd say.
I'd say we are X-laxed for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing I think is important to notate and to be conscious of is that we're all going through this collectively. So we all somehow are on similar parallels here too. Yeah. So the minute you start blaming people and stuff, like, understand, like, it's a reflection of karma, like you said, that then we're resolving, being forced to resolve, which is for the sake of humanity, but also our own individual soul expressions and evolution. It's needed. So we should really take heed to these times. And so, but we're on the same parallel for a reason. So.
Yeah. Have you witnessed a timeline shift that like a distinct where some people are just on a whole nother world clearly?
I noticed that back in 2015. I noticed that.
Right. Yeah.
I even wrote a song about the world's diverging in two. Like you really, actually, even before 2015, like 2014, I think, I think that's a good thing about Trump. Now people, whether you for him or not, I'm a moderate. So I don't believe in the two-party system anyways. But I think that we needed a divide to wake us up. I think we can look at the divide that's happened saying, oh my God, we're not in sync. It's like we never really were in sync, and I think it's just kind of just revealed it. And so I think this divide needed to happen. So I like I said before, I think a lot of people who didn't have voices now, and they're standing up and speaking up. So it's bringing a lot out. It's just chaotic. There's a lot of garbage, a lot of, purging going on. But I think that's for us to, in time, evolve and to know how to come together more realistically, and more consciously.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of people cover up too. I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing people be like, okay, have a good day, you fucking Trump MAGA idiot. Like people aren't really expressing it. They're kind of keeping it to themselves. They're not really projecting onto each other like the media would say we are. I feel like a lot of it is media hype and not even real. I see Republicans and Democrats, shopping at the same stores everywhere. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. It's actually after the election, I noticed too, and I'm in a very liberal city. I'm in Palm Springs, and everyone just seemed relieved that it was over. So people seemed like light energy. It was kind of like I thought it feels more tension, and I really didn't feel it out and about. It felt more light. It's over with. It's done. Let's move on. We did it before, so I think I agree with you on the narrow perspective that the media kind of shines on these things for sure too. I think it's to me the media and politicians really kind of gaslight humans.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of gas, that's for sure.
That's right. Those crop dusts we were talking about earlier.
Right, exactly. Well, moving into after this full moon, which apex is literally in the next 24 hours, it looks like there's a lot of interesting, strange times ahead. I'm just going to put out there. We can talk about it with David as well. But next week, to predict next week's energy, and I'd love to hear your psychic third eye on it. We are wrapping up Scorpio, so it's sort of like throwing in the towel to maybe what you'd hope for, whatever. Really, the divide, I think, technically happens after this full moon in Taurus, where some people are going to manifest a future where life is hell, and some people are going to manifest a future where life is just dandy. And from that point on, we sort of seal the deal, and then we go into Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is like, la, 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 la. I'm just listening to my lyrics and what I believe is true. And so I think basically the divide happens. It's like people start to go to that wormhole. And then moving forward, we have Mercury retrograde, which means now we rethink the fact that we're in a different land. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. And then we have a 6-week Mars retrograde in Leo, which also is I've lost, my heart is lost. What will I do? Or my heart is won. What will I do? So we sort of go down. The point is like this is the last moment this next week of I think where it's going to be in the world. People all retreat to their tribes and cults in December.
That's interesting because I was, kind of psychically feeling about people going to isolation mode to a certain degree, and of course we think logically we have the holidays, so people tend to hibernate to their families and so forth. But I think that just figuratively speaking, in hibernation of kind of really not really working with community in a sense or not wanting to. And I would say it's okay to take a break for this. So if you really feel like you're being self-centered, maybe you need to be more centered with self. I think it's funny how we take self-centered approach as being selfish, but it's good to be centered with yourself. And I think during this chaotic and divisive energy, it's time to kind of look back within. As cliche as that sounds, I hate cliches, as you know, but looking within means that you're taking responsibility for how you feel, not responsibility for how someone else feels, or you're not letting somebody else dictate how you feel. So I think this isolation, and also it's funny, I pulled the Six of Cups in conjunction when I was just reading this, which really is about kind of going back and remember the good times or going back to your roots. I think that's another thing too about going back to your roots and understanding where you came from. What do you truly believe in on the heart, the soul level? Not so much what you've been fed. I think we've altered so many beliefs during this time because of politics and how we've swayed our perspectives, that going back to the roots in this isolation time and then the following week will be a very, I would say, benefit moving forward and see more progression in your individual lives. So I think it's kind of time to stop being so collectively focused, for the next few months.
Well, I mean, that's the whole magic, I think, of Ascension right there. I feel like the Ascension, the people who are on what I call the rainbow bus are, yeah, I know, and that's no throw to you, are basically realizing the truth of reality, which is you are reality. And if you start looking at the TV show to understand yourself, you've lost touch with creation, right? You've lost touch. The Frankenstein has gone off. I think we've all been wrongly misled through organized religion and things through these methods. So no one even should be blamed for it. We've been manipulated by TV, radio, film, everything. But it's like, if you think, to me, that's the divide. I mean, if you think your power is in who was elected as president, unfortunately, I think you got another round on the struggle bus. And if you feel like it doesn't matter because you create your own reality, I think you're on the rainbow bus. So to me, that's the great divide of Scorpio this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
All right. So speaking of self-centeredness, it's now time for a selfless, a shameless promo for myself. One of our today, LOL Leading Out Loud is brought to you by SeriousJoy.com, where we are holding our White Light Friday sale. Retailers call it Black Friday, but we're here at Serious Joy. We're rebranding on Friday. We feel like we have the right to do that, to be based on the light with the White Light Friday sale. On Friday, January 29th, Serious Joy is offering a special sales promotion. Get 2 months of Serious Joy for just $3.99 a month. If you've been a Serious Joy subscriber before and want to come back and try the new improved service, your status has been reset to new customer, giving you the ability to sign up for the introductory rate. Now, Serious Joy, if you're not familiar, is a spiritual life coaching service I developed with my silent partner that uses your personal date of birth to curate highly personalized spiritual life coaching segments for you. Our service sends up to 10 messages per day to your smartphone, web browser, or email address, coaching you into seizing the day of the best version of yourself. We also have a plethora of other features our subscribers love, such as our daily audio podcast, the Daily Pep Talk. We do a musical sound healing every day with something we call the Sound Drop with Kristen Ryder. We have the Mega Monthly Show that gives you the month's perspective, co-starring Robbie Hunt. And releasing later this month, Scott, Serious Joy has actually casted Mary Magdalene. That's right.
All right.
That's right, Yeshua's wife, through her primary psychic medium channel, Krista Marie. So don't take my word for it, folks. Try all these special features and more for just $3.99 on our White Light Friday sale. Going live on Friday, November 29th. Use the special promo code White Light Friday. Yay. How was that?
Say that 5 times fast, will you?
White Light Friday. All right. So let's move on to one of my favorite topics, Armageddon.
All right.
I know. Such a great
exciting,
topic.
Right?
Thanksgiving table. With the recent re-election of President-elect Donald Trump, X.com and other social media platforms are hashtag trending with Armageddon, the idea first predicted by the book of Revelation in the New Testament, in which the Christian Bible in the land of Megiddo, I think, the prophesied location of Armageddon. Basically, a variety of armies will come together for a great battle that they call the end times. The question is, are we in these end times now? So to discuss the topic, we have a special guest today. From the perspective of astrological history, we've invited a fellow social influencer and astrologer who has partly made a name for himself through retro-analysis of astrology and history, particularly on his independent platform and app, High Vibe TV. So welcome to the show, our special guest. And this is the first time he's been on the show, the Leo King, David Palmer. Hello, David. Welcome.
What's up? I've been doing astrology with you, Chris, for 15, 16 years now.
I know. We're going to just be old men. Like, it's been 50 years.
It's been a long
I know.
time.
It's true. And I think along those times, many predictions of Armageddon. We'll talk about that, man. But first, I'd like to have your opinion on the energies going on right now as far as the whole Trump election. I mean, you have seen the worst of it through COVID and whatnot with people and attitudes and cancel culture and all this stuff. Where are you witnessing on your platforms? Where are the people now? What do you pick it up on, man?
I mean, it's a very interesting in the astrological community. 80% of the astrologers predicted Kamala Harris, and so
oh really? Okay,
yeah, they did.
So,
yeah.
So there's this huge battle happening over why does the majority get it wrong? They got it wrong with Hillary. They got it wrong with Kamala. So there's this more of a deeper look into why so many astrologers are getting it wrong. And then there's also this kind of infighting happening of the people who got it wrong with their own fans being mad at them.
Really?
Well, I don't think you should be mad, right? It's a 50-50 situation, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think what people are picking up on, though, is I do feel like everybody's not going to be happy in a way because it's whether it's Trump who won or does Kamala become president for a month before she leaves office. Maybe they did predict her coming president. So I feel like everybody's picking up on these very weird undertones. And when it comes to these kind of end times, I mean, it's the end of the ages. That's really what it always is. But if you think of all these outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, all at the end of their signs, ready to move into new signs here at the beginning of 2025. Pluto coming into Aquarius, finally, for sure, in the next week. I mean, this is where everybody's feeling on edge to this huge new shift.
Okay.
And however that goes, it's all meant to be the way that the pieces are. I always like to think of, well, the end of Pluto Capricorn is the end of all these systems, and all you're hearing with Trump is he's got a bunch of Democrats that are in there, right? It's more of this unification of like, let's gut all these things that have just been wasteful. And so I think a lot of people are a little bit of afraid of that subconsciously because we're so attached to the system. We're so attached to how everything always ran, where I think like most people are excited for it, but I think we're all dealing with the media. And I think that woke up on both sides of the aisle, this media, this Neptune at the end of Pisces, where people were being fed in their echo chambers if they watched this side or that side, like this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And both sides were saying it was the end of the world if either of them got elected, which cancels each other out because that's not going to, that means none of us have a choice, but we all have a choice, like by spirit, to not go through the destruction of the world. You know, like that's the way, it's like 2012 all over again. Jupiter and Gemini 12 years ago. Everybody thought the world was going to be destroyed and end and had horrible movies of it. It's the same thing.
And we'll talk to that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I have a question too about, the whole, because astrology is a science. So what's your take on why half the people are making a false prediction or wrong prediction, the other half are? Like, what's your take on that? If it's a science, what are they reading? Or is it kind of more propaganda to get people to harvest their energy to believe we can manifest that? What do you think is the cause of that? Why people are getting such dichotomies in the astrology reads on that?
Well, I think you have to use history and use the cycles of the planets. So like the last election with Neptune at the end of Pisces was the 1860 election with Lincoln, right? And it was when the Democratic Party split and they had a really weird dual convention where all the electors of all the delegates weren't behind the candidates. So they had two different candidates. Well, all the delegates weren't behind Kamala. Michigan wasn't behind her. And they didn't reveal that till the end. It was also a vice president that was the incumbent who wasn't really liked much. And then Lincoln, who was all the bad press on him that he was too much of an abolitionist and he was gonna force the end of slavery nationally, which is never what he said. He just said, no, just new territories. I'm just gonna make sure that no more, slavery allowed in the new territories. And the Democrats like hyped that up so much that they seceded because of a fear. It wasn't even what he did. He was in transition after being elected, and they're in South Carolina going, no, let's start getting all these other states to create a convention and secede. And that's actually what ended up happening. So using that, or using like Pluto, the last time when the Pluto returned to America, well, we didn't have a president, but we did have a commander of the Continental Army, and that was George Washington, and he was a Pluto Libran. And so it's interesting if you just see all the cabinet picks and everything that just happened with Trump, everybody's Pluto Libra, and there's one Pluto Scorpio, but it's like this whole new generation coming in. So you can use those.
That's Gen X, by the way, for the people who don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the old millennials and the young Gen Xers and so forth. So it's like, and that's what won the election for Trump, ironically. That age group was the highest majority of people that did win. So, you can use those cycles, but I don't think that people are maybe getting it wrong, because I do feel that the people who did look for Kamala, I think they're right. I do feel that there is something about her coming in as president. Like, so,
I agree.
And she has a strong chart for it. So it's one of those things to where I think everybody's getting a part of this right. And that's how the collective's coming together in a weird way.
I was saying to go off that too. I just want to say to go off that too, because the question, because I predicted Trump 2024 back, in 2020, like people reminded me of this, but lately I've been feeling this stalemate energy. I'm like, I knew Trump was going to win the popular vote, felt that, but I feel there's like stalemate energy, like something is going to intercede, before inauguration day. So I'm not sure how that aligns with the astrology or not, but I feel like something gets in the way before inauguration. And I was feeling the same thing. Does Kamala come back in somehow? And so psychically I've been feeling that. So does astrology kind of back that up, you're saying, in that regard? Yeah.
So the new inauguration day ever since the 25th Amendment is January 20th.
Yeah.
And this year in 2024, the Sun and Pluto met for the last time in Capricorn at 29:59, meaning the last second of Capricorn. They're finally meeting January 21st, 2025. So the first Sun-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius of a president to be inaugurated, meaning we've never been here before, even in our 248 years.
Wow,
never
that's
been here.
true.
Crazy.
The last Sun-Pluto conjunction that happened with a presidential inauguration was in Pisces, and it was Monroe back in 1820.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, David. And the American Revolutionary War didn't end until Pluto was at 4 Aquarius, which is interesting. So we still got a long, if we're an echo of times astrologically, we still got a ways to go, as far as the Revolutionary War, so to speak, and what that revolution might be. Yeah.
But that Sun-Pluto conjunction is really something is coming up, and something is being, Pluto it's got its fun tones, and then it's got its really serious tones. And it always is dealing with something coming in that's good. It's like it's extreme fate to me, that something is going to, especially in Aquarius, some unpredictable event that's gonna get us into this whole next 20-year Pluto Aquarius cycle of like learning that everybody's intertwined in weird ways. It's also Pluto, which is what we love and hate at the same time. That's what Scorpio is all about, right? We understand the things we really like and we don't like. And then you're dealing with Aquarius, which is people and where we connect. So those two don't do well. Pluto is very emotional, and Aquarius is like, I don't want that emotion. So Pluto and Aquarius is extremely where it's like you're dealing with people you don't want to deal with. Like, oh my God, I don't know if I really, and then at the same time, like people being obsessed over people. And some people that you can't get rid of, because Pluto doesn't let things just like go away easy. But Aquarius wants to get away. So it's kind of that thing where we all just can't run away into isolation anymore. That world isn't going to really work. Pluto's going to, force us to look deeper into these things. And also force everybody to connect on a more deeper emotional level, which if you think we've already been there, it's like, nah, we haven't been there yet.
Yeah. I'll say, just speaking of what you said, David, and also Scott, in regard to something funky happening. First of all, Pluto, Scorpio to me will hold out to the very last moment, right?
Yeah.
Sexually, everything, right? Like they will hold out. And Capricorn will hold out just out of greed and control power issues, right? So Pluto and Capricorn, to me, you're going to see in the very, 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 very last hour, 29:59, some last minute somethings to sort of steal that football or whatever. So I think the astrology speaks to that. When you speak about a world event or something that no one's considered, what do each of you think about instead of a fake moon landing, a fake alien invasion happening? That seems to be a real potential.
I mean, they just had the UAP hearing yesterday, and we're coming out saying, the UAPs and all that, it's an alien, life force out there, and that, there's all these different secret groups that are in our government, and they have more pictures. So more came out, not like the biggest bomb drop again, but I would say that's the closest now we are to them just about to be like, that stuff happening up there that you don't see, we see more. And then if you think that we've had this weird asteroid never before in our lives, that's been our second moon during this whole period, that's finally about to leave. We've had an asteroid that's come within the moon's orbit and has been orbiting the Earth for this whole last 30 plus days.
Yep.
Really?
It's like something has been come down to watch us, and I feel we've always kind of known this moment. Even Chris and I talking like 15 years ago, when Pluto leaves Capricorn, it comes to Aquarius, it feels like somebody's gonna be watching. And it's like everything in the universe has come to watch this moment.
Yep. I feel that.
There's a bunch of green guys with like binoculars looking at Earth as they do a flyby.
It could be them. It could be, it could be all just, I think, all the spiritual beings and all of the universe, I think, has come here, and it's like the Super Bowl moment for them. Like, let's see what those humans do that get extremely high emotionally and can be very low, but also could do, we're a very unique species. And I think we're really seeing our power with Pluto and Aquarius to be like our roots. Where do we come from? What we are, but it's mainly where do we find that power that we have? And I think we have to own that more, instead of look at the way we look at humanity and Earth together is like, we treat Earth so horrible and we're just horrible. We're a horrible species. And it's like, that's not doing a really good job. I think the vibration can shift so quick about how powerful are we as a species, that every being in the universe has come down here to watch us. I think that's going to be what this end of Pluto Capricorn's about. Is kind of like, okay, maybe we did see the ugliest side, but still at the end of the day, that's what makes it kind of great, is the ability to become conscious and shift out of that and to change the frequency and the vibrations, which we're finally at that moment, which I would say over this next 6 months is really about. It's really about that big shift.
Yeah. Scott, what do you pick up on your psychic third eye in the perspective of what this mystery event might be?
The mystery of what? Would you say it again?
The mystery event. The mystery, you talked about something getting in the way. Have you seen any specifics or images or,
I think I want to kind of dovetail what David was just saying too about how I believe that there's also alien life force that is connecting right now with our civilization, but I also believe in energy harvesting too. So I think there's a lot of other species that are parasitic that are harvesting. I always say the manifestation communities. There's one where I feel like they're really harvesting a lot of energy from people who are in this type of vapid spiritual flow thinking. So I think it's now to be more conscious, even though we're evolving and shifting our species. I think it's conscious to look out for the signs where there might be places where we are kind of being energy harvested on, because there is so much power, like David said before, that we are evolving. That's we're going to start realizing the potentials of our power, but there are those that want to harvest that and take it. So I don't think all that are watching are actually in our favor and our benefit. So I think we need to be very conscious of that too, but what we're being privy to and what we're allowing ourselves to fall victim to and prey to too. And that's what I said back in the day when they did MK Ultra. That still exists today within our media, within the brainwash that's going on with the manipulation of society and culture. So we have to be aware of that too, because there's people that do not want us to evolve either, and they still want to harvest our energy. So I think now, even though it's that great moment, we have equal opposition too. So I just kind of want to dovetail what David was saying, during this course of the evolution of our species. It's important that we're conscious of that too, because we could also be left behind. It's not always we're all going to rise up. We'll be left behind too. We don't evolve, and I think that's the symbology of the revelation in the biblical text about those raising frequency of consciousness. And so again, if you don't, you'll be thrown back into the reincarnation loop. So I do think these are very important times. So I wanted to dovetail in this way because I really think it's important that we're objective of this too, because you don't want to not evolve either, because it's a very powerful energy.
Right. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the beginning of the United States, and and that was completely alien territory. People having the right to free speech and the right to vote and that was all foreign. That was just crazy technology. Interestingly enough, we have a friend of the show, Wendy Kennedy, who channels the Palladians, and we had a chance to interview them off camera, and the Palladians said the same thing, David. Everyone is showing up to watch. This is like the big popcorn reality moment, the Super Bowl of the galaxy, and apparently, according to the Palladians, it's because it affects them. They are so sensitive, according to Wendy and the Ps, that nuclear testing fucks up their television.
Right.
Like screws up their stuff. It goes through the universe. That's why they don't want nukes. They're not so they're not so concerned about us destroying ourselves again. It's it's the smell of the fart that the Earth puts off into the galaxy that is the issue. So
I agree.
We've been here before. We've been here in alien times and whatnot. Just look at the beginning of the United States, like how people were grappling with these new powers and how the Bank of England was trying to shut them down. Like we're there again. And segueing back to you, David. I mean. We've talked about this off camera thousands of times, but Pluto is in Capricorn Aquarius. That was the American Revolution. Neptune's about to go into Aries next year. That's the Civil War, right? Uranus in Taurus was World War II. This is the accumulation astrologically of at least 3 major history writing world conflicts all in one. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's all of our 3 biggest ones of wars, right? Revolution, civil, and going into World War II. But I look at that as, okay, it is serious. With Mars in opposition to Pluto as it's moving into Aquarius here, and Mars for the next 7 months, going to retrograde from Leo back into Cancer starting December 6th. We haven't actually in our lives seen Mars in Leo back into Cancer. It's always been Mars retrograde in Leo or a Mars retrograde from Cancer. So it's going through both in the opposition as Pluto's moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius. So it's both those axis points. And so Mars and Pluto in opposition is very volatile. So you add to these outer planets. And what we're going to have to face here is like, how are we going to bring that love and that comfort back into a world that we've maybe been MK Ultra? Because that's one thing. I'm glad that you brought that up, Scott. Because there is that, like, are we going to allow all these powers of control that really are just convincing you don't have control, right? Like,
Right.
and then at the same time, there's that Pluto and Aquarius and the Mars retrograde in Leo that's like, hey, you know what? We have to find a way to express ourselves and find ways to connect. And I think Uranus and Taurus is going to be the interesting part of this, because with Pluto and Capricorn, it disposits Saturn, which is in Pisces. And so we're all feeling this sloppiness after, you know, the pandemic, all this stuff. When Saturn comes into Pisces, it's always like, oh, it's just like everything feels like I'm behind by so much. I'm behind. And it, with Neptune being there, the ruler of Pisces, the last time Saturn and Neptune were in the same sign of Pisces was in 1523. So it's been 500 years since we've seen Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces, but they won't meet there. They're going to technically meet in Aries in January 2026. So that's the starting point of all astrology, the 0 point of Aries. So there is this whole new identification spiritually, but also making sure with Saturn that it's not too out there, because Neptune in Pisces and Neptune itself, there is no boundaries. It's the widest, you know, frequency of the whole universe and this whole understanding. I mean, it's like literally an acid trip that you're like having that moment of like, I see the whole universe, but like, you know, that's reality, and go into the kitchen and figuring out what to do in there. You don't know what to do at that moment when you're in that.
Totally.
So
yeah,
Saturn is bringing us back to how do we integrate that view, because I think the last, you know, since 2011 when Neptune came into Pisces, the world's had a huge spiritual wake up, but then there's been the downside of like whether we get too lost in things, whether we get too caught up in the media part, or we come into some, you know, too far with some of these things. There is this moment where I feel that it's different with Saturn meeting with Neptune here to actually give us a way to bring these amazing spiritual things into actual, like, not just practice, but actually into form and new structures. Because the funny thing is the universe is ending old structures, Pluto ending in Capricorn, and then it's giving us a year later, Saturn, Neptune at the 0 point of Aries, bang, start the new structures. Like, it's not like the universe is just like tower carding us, having us do the star forever. It's like, no, I'm kind of getting you guys into gear now, you know?
It is a quick wardrobe change. And I was just going to joke about how Neptune and Pisces is sort of like serving alcohol at an AA meeting. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like this enabler. And Saturn, you're right. I think David's like, Neptune's like, could be this, could be aliens, could be your imagination. But I think like Saturn's like, no, it's fucking this. Yeah. Like, it's sort of that determiner, or at least the ability to determine, or maybe people will be able to commit to the, you know, the crazy vision right from the get-go. You know, they'll be devotional to the, you know, to the what's the word? Being out of touch with reality. I'm looking for the word for it. I guess I'm out of touch. So I think you're right. I feel it's gonna be a fascinating defining moment. And with them coming together in Aries at 0, like in my world of lingo, that's a Pluto degree. So to me, that conjunction says, hey, this conjunction is sponsored by Pluto and Aquarius. You know, where we're gonna elevate. We're gonna use this energy to elevate. We're not gonna use this energy to break down, control. Because Saturn, Neptune, and Aries could also be interpreted as, you know, some king in Mongolia somewhere saying, "I am the ruler of the world, and I know it, and I'm going to prove it." And they do prove it. You know, can you think of astrologically, you know, another moment like this, David, with, you know, where we have spirit and also Earth, Saturn, and Neptune, you know, Saturn and Neptune coming together in the same force?
I mean, in 1523, it was interesting because the Pope at the time, the printing presses had just come out. And in Amsterdam, it was the hub, because in 1517, you have Martin Luther put his thesis against the Pope, waking people up, because back then the printing presses, right, were just coming out, but everybody had to go to church and they had to go see the priest, and the priest could read Latin and normal people couldn't read. So whatever the Pope said, and the Pope started acting like a king, right? Like telling people what to do, even though the Pope's the church, right? He wasn't like the king of the land or the queen of the land. And so Martin Luther starts calling out the Pope in 1517. And by 1523, the printing presses in Amsterdam are printing in different languages and giving the messages of people like, hey, look at what Martin Luther was saying. Look at what all these other people were saying. So the church goes, the Pope goes, I'm going to excommunicate people, and I'm throwing down heresy laws in Amsterdam. The irony of the whole thing is by the time that it gets into Aries, and it ends the conjunction, the Pope dies and it doesn't work out. So there's that other part where when you try to control too hard here and it's not spiritually good, you're out. Like, it's just like,
I agree.
You're not going to win, like you ain't going to win. And so, like, for me, I like to go back to the exact of like, okay, it was in Pisces. And it's so weird because you see with censorship on the internet, which, Chris and I are very techie people and been friends for 16 years and love the internet. It was made to always be uncensored, fully free. That's how it was based, the World Wide Web.
Right. Yep.
And so the way that we're seeing it now, and them trying to come in and say, you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't. That's not the internet. I mean, we've all seen the craziest stuff in our lives since we were young on the internet. We've downloaded Napster, we've done all these things. So it's really interesting to me to see that the printing press now is the internet.
Yeah.
And how they're trying to stop that, because we're talking about our governments that they work for us, like. Right. Unless you unfortunately live in the UK or Australia or Canada, you guys got to figure that one. And that could be their revolution, because you're starting to see that too, right? Like they're kind of waking up now to like, what are these royals doing? Like they just sit around and do nothing and have money and get glamours. Like that whole celebrity glam thing is over too.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I predicted that years ago about celebrity culture dying. You got to see it from a mile away. That's becoming an end. And we talk about this Armageddon all the time. We think it's like the end of our planet, end of the species. Like, the planet's not ending. I mean, the way we go about functioning in the planet is ending. And so I think that's the evolution here too, is finding our power. I think the more opposition we've had with censorship, more people are speaking up. I mean, there's people that are lagging behind too with their realization. But I'm actually finding Armageddon is kind of like just ending of the structure that we've had for so long and rising into more 5D perspectives. So to me, this is a positive thing. I know we got to break down and break through, but I think that, again, this is all something we have to stop being so hyper panicked and all this stuff too. And people are talking about rights and take away rights. In America, I've seen a lot of people stand up for a little bit of social issues of stand up for their rights. If they start taking away even more rights, we're going to stand up as a collective. So I just don't see it being the end of America, the end of our species, or the end of the planet. I'm just not seeing that, and the sense of Armageddon. I just think there's a lot of massive structures that are being broken down, and people are realizing it now too, and we're rebuilding. So that's how I see it, in a sense.
It's interesting how you see Armageddon in both camps, because I think there is the one camp of New World Order who thinks Armageddon is that finally they've got the computers in our bloodstream and we can be remotely controlled, and finally they can control the population.
One more government.
It's funny, even like New World Order, it's like we all agree there's going to be a new world. We're just disagreeing about what the order will be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's funny how the collective
always nothing to be happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all collectively agree, but Armageddon at the end of the day was a fear story that you told the early Christians so that they would keep going to church.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was a total propaganda at the time, I think, and and has been, whatever, now devote belief in certain Southern churches, like it's literally coming. But I think we all kind of sense it. And David, you went back to it in earlier here in the show, which is Atlantis. Now, I personally believe in Atlantis. I believe I rode that bitch down, you know what I mean? Like, got off on a ship in the last moment. I feel like collectively it is our greatest wound. Like, that is Armageddon, that we have lived it before. We had everything in the world and we lost everything in the world and went back to tribal times and no microwaves. And oh my God, how hard was that? So I feel like, this whole projection of the end of times is really just us emotionally coping when it was the end of times.
Yeah, I mean, or it's very Camelot. I mean, there's a Kennedy in the White House again.
I know.
So, and it's kind of interesting with like Trump, who's very Leo, right? Like energy, kind of an Arthurian figure. I'm still trying to figure out who Merlin and all the rest would be, but it's an interesting notion of both, right? Like this failure that'll happen in society, whether it's the spiritual Atlanteus one, especially with technology, because Pluto and Aquarius brings that up. And if you think about going back to the alien part, right? It's 1947, Roswell. And after that, technology booms. So there's like that interesting question, not only of our own human understanding of who are we, where do we really come from, but the technology. Like if you think of the alien crafts that finally came here, that's when, it's not these little glass tubes anymore in the back of a radio. Just out of nowhere, they figure out how to make a television, how to start making computers. And now we're at this place where, is AI human Like, is it, or was it like the aliens coming down here, setting the technology for us to be the robots that self-assemble instead of us looking at the robots? That's another fear, right? Oh my gosh, the robots are going to take over. What if we have been kind of used as little mini robots to create the aliens for them?
Right. Yeah.
Technology wise.
Yeah. It's interesting. And according to the piece and Wendy, both exist. You know, there are apparently, I mean, the other thing is there's an Armageddon going on in the universe. You know, that there's these pesky, you know, certain alien species who keep fucking it up for other species. Like the Pleiadians had to deal with them. It's like an infestation. They show up on your planet. They start turning your people into robots, changing your chromosomes around. So there's, you know, this is also a symbol of a galactic thing. I kind of feel like the biggest shift that I feel like we'll have collectively, probably the most powerful shift, is the fact that it's not the Earth, it's the Milky Way. Like, you know, that we see things in such small solar system terms.
Right.
These higher chakras, if you will, above the crown start to open up and blink, you know, and I feel like that's going to happen one way or another. To me, that's the most profound, you know, next big thing to happen, really.
I agree.
Aquarius,
Yeah, I agree. The evolution is galactic. I don't think it's just planet Earth. Yeah, I agree. The whole, you know, everything is evolving and cycling for sure. Yeah, we just think it's our little pea brain of a planet Earth experience. No, it's galactic, you know.
Yeah.
So I agree. And we're teaching the higher dimensionality of interdimensional beings too. They're learning from our petty density, you know. So
they are, and I've interviewed angels through mediums and other, you know, entities through mediums, and they're all fascinated by the fact. What's interesting about the Earth experiment is like apparently when you become an Earthling, you know, you get sort of dumbed down. You have this amnesia drink you take before you get down into the portal, where you forget everything about the universe and altruism of mankind and go down this very dim perspective. And to them, it's really fascinating to see spirits, you know, like basically on a drug. Which is that you can't forget, you can't remember the whole galactic truth, and let's see how the little worms handle that one. You know, it's a reality series in that regard.
And we get power to these little green pieces of paper. We get power to that. What? That's so fascinating. How are they doing that? You know.
Well, even our
money
by design.
You know?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Oh no, I agree. I think too. It's like we're discovering who we are, but we're going to have some other major discoveries. Like if you think about this, every planet rules this energy and vibration. And it also is the ruler of the signs. There has to be there's going to be an X planet that has to describe what we've all been experiencing. Because like, what's weird about it is everybody's feeling like, so what is all this weird energy? It's like, there's another body of energy out there that we're going to discover that go, and it's going to be that planet that's like when it all culminates, like, you know, like like all the signs come together and all these planets do their big ballet and leave signs together and do this, because this is really rare. I mean, if you just go back 6,000 years and you really run it on like solar fire and start putting in like, okay, all three outer planets and when they're moving into new signs and out of Mars opposition, you know, whenever Mars retrogrades, it's the only time the sun is in opposition to Mars is when it's in retrograde, because it's the first planet outside of us. And when you start running that, and then we have a Venus retrograde that follows it right after, those are really rare moments. In Nostradamus's prophecies book of 1555, he gave the date of his preface to his son as the chart to use when the worlds will go through craziest changes. And it was during a Mars retrograde and a Venus retrograde in opposition. And we're not getting to that, but there's more charts that he shows just through dates. And I've done a lot of research on this, and we are coming into where Nostradamus would have been pay attention. And I did all the work. He uses Saturn and Aries at the 0 point as every cycle of Saturn and Aries, and you count 7 of them. So that's 30 years and 7. And then there's like another 3 that you add to get to the X to 10, Roman numeral 10. And so after doing that and looking at where he's been right now, that's about to happen at the beginning of 2025 is where he, using his cycles, predicts we come into this huge extreme evolution in humanity. And it's going to look crazy, but I think that's where people are too stuck on the system is more than the physical, right? It's it's that whole like subconscious attachment that you know, to me, it's like, you know, it feels safe. Like my whole life, I grew up with the mailman showing up, you know, it's like, well, how much longer is that going to last? I mean, everybody's on email. The only thing that comes in your mail anymore is, I guess, your ballot and coupons.
Coupons.
Right. Yeah.
We still got those too.
And I don't even know if they're really good coupons anymore. It's just mainly like an advertisement, right? Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the environment, what a waste of paper.
I know. Yeah.
Like,
totally.
so we're coming into those things that I think people are there's gonna be people who love the new world and people who are gonna just be
That's what I'm saying.
very unhappy and trying to revolt, because there's gonna be a lot of like, pushback, and everybody's gonna have different values at the end of Uranus and Taurus here. But we have to remember, it's not just about you wanting to be seen for your values, but that only happens if you're willing to be truly aware and want to appreciate another person's value.
Well,
And
yeah,
I think that's where you see the relationship problems, is that people are like, I want to be seen for my value. Okay. Well, you have to be willing to also see in other people's values, and it might not be what you value fully, but that's what you're wanting to feel back from others.
Yeah, and I also feel too, a lot of people's values are changing too. Say the past, like say decade, I think people had the wrong values or put their energy in so many different values. I'm seeing people's values starting to change too, and I also believe too the evolution of our values at some point is going to reach ahead where we may start be able to live in peace and harmony with different value systems and so forth. You know what I mean? I think that's where the separation comes of those who don't evolve. So because I've been finding more and more people, even when it comes to the election and politics, being more open to hearing the opposing side. And not being so quick to dismiss. I mean, there's still some that do, but I'm still seeing people kind of opening up and finding more ways of compromise with different value systems. So that's what I project too, or predict, is a lot more people be realizing their value systems have been off. They put in the values in the wrong things. So I'm seeing an evolution of that, moving forward too, which helps, the expansion.
Well, Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, is in Taurus, which is values. And right now, even this Halloween full moon happening on Friday morning conjuncts Uranus at step 25. So ultimately, I think what that does is create some sort of chords and allows us now to elevate to new values. When I look at values is what you put time and energy into, spending a lot of time and energy into this and spending a lot of time
fight for the things people fight for,
Yeah, totally. And so I agree. I've always said that the age of Aquarius is not some kumbaya, we're all doing acid and we're naked in the garden dancing together.
Well, we'll do that too. Come on.
Well, some gardens will.
There'll be some of that for sure.
It's that we will sort of be like kind of a Texas energy, which is like, you stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine. Where it's sort of just like the way we get along is by agreeing that we don't have to all be the same. And I think we also have to realize that we've been under a spell known as Catholicism, known as Judaism, known as science. These are all brainwashing in lots of ways. It's like to get people to thinking it's black and white, it's us versus them. This has been, if there's a conspiracy that is true, it has been this idea that everything is under one truth, this truth, the one I told you, And so we break free from that spell that there's only one truth. And then we get to the reality of life, which is like, it's actually any fucking truth you want. It's called creation. You know what I mean? Not paint by number, So we've been told it's a paint by number. Turns out you can actually paint it any color you fucking want. That to me is the big paradigm shift. And so Uranus and Taurus,
Yeah, but the goal is to be objective and unaffected, because I think that's when you truly evolve. When you can look at different circumstances, you're not affected by the negative, not affected by things that happen. You're like, I understand why it all connects, and that's how we can truly evolve too. And so I'm not affected by it. And so we can accept that. So objective and unaffected, I think, is the mastery of this reality, in my opinion.
Go get that domain, objectivenotaffected.com right now.
Oh, it's already stayed, honey.
Well, if you think, like George Washington was a Mason. And what's interesting is the country was based, not all the founding fathers were Masons, but the ones that you hear the most about were. And so it's interesting because in Masonry, it's everybody comes together and agrees that there is a God, but you don't bring your religion in.
Yep.
Yes, that's true.
Right. So the foundation
the great creator, I think, is the term they use.
Yeah, and or the G, just God, right? Like that's why the G is in Masonry.
Right.
But it's like it's weird that the first foundational slab at the U.S. Capitol building that came at the end of Pluto and Aquarius was laid by Washington and all the Masons.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is Pluto and Aquarius also brings up, the fake Illuminati has just ended, which was the celebrity culture with I don't know, all that stuff, right? Like they were just like sold at a Diddy party that you're in the Illuminati now.
Yeah, you got
There
power.
was
Yeah,
no Illuminati like that. That was like some fake Illuminati trying to be cool or something. Like that
agreed.
ended, right? So what's going to be interesting is I think people are going to be like wanting to go to like no technology zones to go rave at a party and just be in pure bliss love, right? Out in the desert or out in like the Salt Lakes or something like that. I've been seeing that one for years, like this, like people going, okay, I'm out of a technology zone. I don't, no phone, nothing. Because Pluto is like, yes or no, all the way, right? So when it comes to Aquarius, it's be like, no, you have a phone, you're texting, not here, like whoa. And then also technologies that also block, a lot of frequencies and shift frequencies because that technology's out there in the spiritual community and so forth. And so I feel that there's going to be like groups. If you take the Mason idea, I don't think it's going to be so like old school, like fraternal and sorority like style, but all inclusive together, male, female, anybody who wants to be whatever they want to be. Right. And it's going to be more about these like areas where we go, okay, you might believe in that religion or that. We're all coming here to be humans that believe in this divine, and we're all coming together to enjoy that. And there's going to be these spaces, and there's going to be that area where it feels like you can do that. And that's kind of like the evolved version of like, I think the beginnings of really, which were the secret societies, which were carrying the old wisdom because the religions were after them, right? So they had to keep all that info, and they had to carry it underground. I always like to say, I mean, I'm an astrologer, I don't know if I'd want to put my TV studio like and build it in some parts of this country, right? Like the city council might be like, I'm the reverend on the board. You can't be doing that here, son. Get the exorcist out. Like,
yeah.
And that's why I live in California. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I live in California. It's free. And there is no, future telling laws here or any of that stuff. That was all taken out in the early 70s. So, because there are states in America where you can do this work, technically.
Yeah, technically. And I think that's the solution. The solution is you want to live that life, go to Alabama or go to California or go.
Right.
I mean, that's the solution, that you just go across the border and you go live in a different world, different laws and whatnot. It's a fascinating talk. David, I wish we could have some more time with you today because you do such great insight. For people who don't know, tell us where you are vibing. First of all, the High Vibe TV platform, which is amazing, dude. Been watching it the entire incarnation. You should be proud of it. You're sort of reinventing yourself right now. Where can people find you for free? Where can people find you for a small donation?
The Leo King is where you find me anywhere in High Vibe TV, the apps, or the website.
Right. highvibe.tv. I'm just putting it out there for those who may not know. About the kingdom. Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah, lots of great stuff coming out. I'm looking forward to collabs in the future, dude, and seeing where this goes. It's been an interesting ride, and like when we started writing together, this is the time we were focusing on the most, and here it is. So it's been quite a journey.
It's been 12 years since you and I did a video together, and it was on December 21st, 2012.
I remember that. Yeah, vaguely remember that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been that long. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I know, and actually. God, we can talk about that too. I mean, I feel like I'm seeing the same cycles of the Jupiter in that same space, and from a new perspective, a little higher up, it's kind of interesting. Because I could have sworn back then, that we're about to live what we're about to live now. Of course, I might eat those words in 12 years. We'll see.
No, if you rewatch that interview, you were dead on the money about everything.
Okay, yeah. Well, excellent.
So you don't need to worry. You were right. It's not even that I think that astrologers are right. I think a true astrologer. It's 100% the astrology, and you know how to like not doubt that and just fully go, this is what it's saying. This is what it's going to do.
Yeah, that's got me through COVID, all sorts of different little moments of other, apocalypses. It's just that, the planets don't say that. So fuck, they've been right to my whole life. I'm going to put all my chips on this one and go for it. So, but thank you, David.
Thanks for having me on. Love you both very much. What you're both doing.
Thank you. Hang backstage. We'll say goodbye there too. All right, everyone. Well, Dave, Mr. Scott, any last words on this as far as how to focus in this next week?
Yeah, I mean, it's just we kind of summed it up in a nutshell, I think, in the whole 45, 50 minutes we were on. But yeah, I think it's really identifying the self right now, right? And kind of being in that isolation period and, letting people reveal to you who they are and reveal who you truly are and just kind of embrace that. Don't fight it. I think too many people are fighting that growth, And another thing I want to say too that came to mind today, I think that it's a message that's been repetitive. I want to tell people too, there's people that are trying to heal too much. They are just so focused on healing. I'm like, stop healing. It's because a lot of guys don't need to be healed. You guys just need to grow. And I think right now is a good time just to grow. We don't need to be so focused on healing. It's just letting go of the outdated patterns and of the past and just rebuilding with new thought processes, because it's really about the growth most of the time and not so much about the healing. So too many people are so focused and emphasize their healing journey. It's like, how about you've healed? Let's continue to grow now. So I just throw that out there. I've been seeing a consistent occurrence about that the past week.
Yeah, and I was there once too, so I I understand it. The truth that I believe is that the only time you're not healing is when you're getting in the way of it. Like it's a natural process. In my step system, it's like step 11 is I come together. So the only time you're sick, is when you get in the way of the natural force of coming together.
And just it's the realization of the growth process, because I think people get so fixated on the healing process they lose sight of the growth process too. And so, and that would be the antidote, really, to the healing. So.
Yeah, the antidote to healing. That's a great topic. We'll have to come back with that. All right, friends. We're always pleased to be here week after week. If you don't know, we stream this talk show on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And we have our famous saying as we leave. Thank you for watching. And remember, folks, don't put up with a shift show. Lead out loud. We'll see you next week.
Good night, guys.
Ciao.
Good night, good day, good morning, wherever time frame it is.
Yeah, man. Okay, so we pulled that one off.
I had something I wanted to say, but time is flying by.
Yeah, I thought it went well, but your point on individuality, I want to underscore, because that's where I've been personally. It's just embracing me and how effed up I am, and that's fine. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? That's fine.
He finally admits it right here, guys. He admits it here. He's fucked up.
Yeah,
it's true.
Under the noise of the credits and hidden here in the background.